الحمد لله وكفى وسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا بني إسرائيل اذكروا نعمتي التي أنعمت عليكم وأني فضلتكم على العالمين واتقوا يوما لا تجزي نفس عن نفس شيئا ولا يقبل منها عدل ولا تنفعها شفاعة ولا هم ينصرون صدق الله العظيم. Regarding ayat number 122 and 123 of Surat al-Baqarah, the bayan or discussion regarding the Bani Israel, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala concludes this discussion in Surat al-Baqarah with these two ayat, ayat number 122 and ayat number 123. And this is actually a repetition of a message that was given or mentioned in the beginning of this lengthy bayan, or this very lengthy discussion about the Bani Israel. From ayat number 40, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala began the bayan or discussion, dialogue, and details regarding the Bani Israel, some of the evil habits and qualities that they had. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned many of their qisas, many of their stories. And throughout this whole discussion, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes one thing very clear in these 80 or 82 ayat, from ayat number 40 to ayat number 123. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes it very clear that the Bani Israel, they were given chance after chance and time and again. They were given many opportunities to turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to accept the hidayah, to accept the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to give up their evil ways, to give up their evil habits. But rather than accepting hidayah and guidance and accepting the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Bani Israel resorted to killing the Anbiya alayhimus salam, killing the prophets and messengers. And they turned against the ahkam of the deen that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them. They also proved their treachery, that they were not to be trusted with hidayah or guidance, because they proved that whenever hidayah or guidance came to them, whenever wahi and revelation came to them, after some time they would try and distort it, change it to fit their desires. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, after explaining in very great detail their case and the case of the Bani Israel, one thing should be understood, that in the Quran, nothing happens by chance. And whenever you find such a detailed discussion about a very particular topic, there's very great hikmah and very deep wisdom behind why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given so much emphasis and so much attention to this topic. It is very common in our society as human beings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He has given us insan, He has given us human beings this innate ability to learn from our mistakes. There are three types of people in this world when it comes to understanding mistakes. One group of people who are considered very wise. They're that group that learns from the mistakes of other people. They're considered very wise people. When they learn from the mistakes of others, they understand from the evil character of others what not to do. So they're considered wise people. Wise people will always learn lessons, not just from their own mistakes, but from the mistakes of others. They asked Hakim Luqman alayhi salam, the wise sage, Luqman alayhi salam, they asked him that, you're so well mannered, you have such beautiful character and akhlaq. Where did you learn this akhlaq? Where did you learn this beautiful character? So Luqman alayhi salam, he said, one, I was in the company of many prophets. He was given this gift that he used to travel and find the Anbiya alayhim salam. He used to seek out the prophets and messengers at his time and come in their company. So he said, when I was in their company, and I learned many beautiful akhlaq from them. And he said, the other thing is that I looked at the people who were very rude and ill-mannered. He said, by watching them, that what they were doing, I realized that, okay, this is an evil character, this is an evil character. And I told myself, this is something I will not do. So wise people, they learn from the mistakes of others. There's a second group of people, they're known as human beings, regular insan. Regular human is someone who learns from his own mistakes. You make a mistake, you learn from it. So that's a normal person. And if you don't learn from other people's mistakes, at least learn from your own mistakes. So this is a normal person. And then there's a third category of people who are not necessarily very intelligent. They don't even learn from their own mistakes. They keep repeating mistakes. Okay? So at least as believers, we're told that we should learn from the mistakes of others. What mistake someone else makes. As believers, we are expected to be wise enough to learn from the mistakes of others. If not, then at least from our own mistakes, we should at least learn. When we're told something and taught lessons, then a believer is someone who is not to repeat his mistake twice. He should not let shaitan deceive him twice. There's even a hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam to this effect. لا يلدغ المرء من جحر واحد مرتين. That a man is not stung or bitten from the same hole twice. You stick your finger in a hole, you get stung. Don't stick your finger in there again. At least a believer is expected not to repeat his mistakes. So, and if not that, then at least to the wiser level, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala expects from the mu'min, from the believer, that you learn from the mistakes of others, learn from the nations of the past. What a'mal, what actions led to the downfall and the destruction of the nations of the past. So stay away from those a'mal. Be careful and protect yourself from those a'mal. So that is why in such a lengthy discussion, 80 ayat, fully dedicated to the bayan and discussion of the Bani Israel, their qisas, their stories, their character, their ill habits, all of the ahkam that were given to them and how they changed their deen. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took up 80 ayat just in the very beginning, this middle portion of Surat al-Baqarah. There are other places in Surat al-Baqarah and a few more places coming later on, where some more qisas, a few other stories are mentioned about the Bani Israel. It'll be kind of a extended discussion in the siyaq and sibaq, in the context of those verses. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has delayed one discussion. The major portion of discussion within these ayat, from ayat number 40 until ayat number 123, the main discussion is the qissa in the story of Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives great emphasis, or lays great emphasis on this story, because the Bani Israel, they were oppressed. And they were going through extreme oppression at the hands of Fir'aun and his people. Fir'aun did not leave a stone unturned in oppressing the Bani Israel. He took every chance he could to oppress them, to take their rights and to harm them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, out of His immense mercy and rahmah, He sent Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam as a Nabi to the Bani Israel, and his brother Harun alayhi salam. They were Anbiya alayhi salam that came to the Bani Israel, and they rescued the Bani Israel from the tortures and the dhulm and oppression of Fir'aun. But rather than the Bani Israel being grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for such a great ni'mah, such a great favor, the Bani Israel time and again resorted to shirk, disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They gave Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam a very hard time. Time and again they asked him many strange questions, and they demanded many strange things. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, out of His immense mercy, gave them many chances. Many favors and special favors were given to the Bani Israel, and they were commanded to carry out the ahkam and the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to preserve the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But rather than being grateful, they chose a path of arrogance, and they chose a path of disobedience. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on multiple occasions sent His adhab and His punishment against them. It's a very great lesson for us also as believers, that before the revelation of the Quran and Kalamullah, before the deen of Islam, humanity was in very dark ages. Humanity had gone to a time of jahiliyyah, a time of ignorance. And what is unique about that time of jahiliyyah is that there were a'mal and actions that the people were performing, and people were involved in, that was so despicable that humanity cannot even speak about them afterwards. We just have one title for it, the time of Jahiliyyah. People had no respect for women. Society was downtrodden. There was slavery, and the slaves were treated worse than animals. And there were many very terrible a'mal and very terrible akhlaq and character that people had at that time. The actions that the people were involved in are beyond description and beyond explanation. We just have one title for it, the time of Jahiliyyah. If that was the civilized nation of the Arab, what was the condition of the rest of the world? Remember, the Arab, at the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, before wahi, before the revelation of the Quran, they were considered one of the most honorable people in the world. Sometimes we think that they were very downtrodden. No. In the eyes of humanity, they were considered respectable people. And the Haramain, specifically the Kaaba, Baytullah, was a place that was honored and respected, and anyone who took care of that, it used to be considered the traditions of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam. The world knew about this purity, and the purity of the Kaaba, Baytullah. And it was considered a very great honor for anyone who became a khadim of the Kaaba, Baytullah. They were considered the khadimeen and the servants of those who used to serve those who would come to do the Hajj. Don't think Hajj is something that came only in Islam. It was there from the time of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam. Yes, people distorted the a'mal. They changed the a'mal. They changed the actions of Hajj. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, through this beautiful deen of Islam, brought back the a'mal and the actions of Hajj. But the Arab were considered honorable people. And if you read their life, what the kind of a'mal and things they used to do, one can be surprised that how can these be considered honorable people? But if they were considered honorable people, imagine what was the condition of the rest of the dunya, what was the condition of the rest of the world. That in what kind of darkness the rest of the world was involved in, what kind of a'mal the rest of the world was involved in. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam as a great rahmah, a great mercy for mankind, to take them out of all of that darkness, all of those evil actions, all of those evil ways, and to bring about a very pure system and a pure life. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam at this time, what was needed to be understood was that there was a nation before. The nation of the Bani Israel, they were given many chances. But the kind of amal that they did and their reaction to the Anbiya alayhim as-salam and to the prophets was very strange and very terrible. Remember, there were 10,000 Anbiya alayhim as-salam. Some 10,000 prophets and messengers, more or less, they were sent to the Bani Israel. And majority of those prophets and messengers, the Bani Israel, they killed them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in numerous places in the Quran, يُقَتِّلُونَ, that they used to kill أنبياء الله من قبل. يَقْتُلُونَ الْأَنْبِيَاءَ بِغَيْرِ حَقٍّ. They used to kill the prophets and the messengers without any justification, for no reason. Just that the Nabi would tell them to do something they did not like, so they would make a plot and kill the Nabi of the time. And not one, not two, how many they killed. It's unbelievable. They even attempted to kill Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. They made a few attempts on him also. So this was their reaction and this was their actions, and this was their reaction to wahy, to the revelation, to hidayah and guidance that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took this privilege from them. But they are a very great lesson for us. As believers, we should be very, very careful what we do with our deen, how we distort the ahkam. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there's also another wisdom in these verses. And that wisdom in these verses that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us is that this ummah, the ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, they will also make and commit many of the very sins that the Bani Israel committed. They will make many mistakes. This ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Yes, we may not have prophets and messengers amongst us, but the ulama, the scholars, they are the warithin, they're the heirs to the ilm of nubuwah. Al-ulama warathatul anbiya. The ulama, they're the heirs to the prophets and prophethood. They carry the ilm of nubuwah in their chest and in their hearts. But what is the reaction of the ummah to many of the ulama? Go read history. How many of the great ulama, they were put to death by who? Many a times their aqaid and their beliefs were challenged, when those were the beliefs of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. So many a times this has happened throughout history. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us this discussion. The time will come where you will make these mistakes, but try and understand, at least for those of you who can, protect yourself from the sins of the Bani Israel. And don't think that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not send His adhab again. Throughout history, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent His adhab. Whenever people involved in extreme darkness, specifically the darknesses of dhulm and oppression, then the adhab of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala came. And it came in various ways. We live in a strange era. At a time when there is a virus that is spreading. Today is the February 23rd, 2020. There's a strange virus that is spreading in the world. They don't know what it is. They don't know where it came from. They have no idea how to contain it. They don't even know how it's spreading from person to person. All they know is that every time they try and study it, it mutates. It's a very strange virus. It's killing people. They're calling it coronavirus. Where it started from, they're saying it started in China. It's spreading from country to country, killing people. Where in the United States, there are numerous cases now appearing even in the United States. They don't know what it is and how it is. But what is clear is that many of the great ulama of this time, the muhaddithin and the mufassirin, for the past 10, 15 years, they have been warning humanity. Go read the writings of the muhaddithin and the mufassirin, the great ulama from Syria and from Iraq and from many, many other places in the world. What were the ulama telling mankind? That be careful, stop oppressing humanity. Stop oppressing the weak, stop oppressing those who are oppressed. Stop the dhulm and oppression. There's no need for this dhulm and oppression. Stop all of this. Otherwise, the adhab will come, then no one will be able to stop. And this is historical fact. You go back, go to the time of the Crusades. What happened? The Crusaders, they were killing people right and left. What happened in Jerusalem at that time? And how many people were killed? And what happened? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent a plague at that time also. Go and read about all of the time of the dhulm and oppression of that time. And how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent a very, very strange plague. Europe was in dark ages at a time. They were doing many, many strange acts and a'mal in the disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you read about the bubonic plague. They call it the Black Plague or Black Death. How many people died from it? Same happened with the Spaniards, the Spanish flu they call. How many? And these are numbers in the millions died from these kind of diseases and these plagues. And ajib, sometimes we don't realize the hikmah of our deen. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us a solution in His deen. Yes, I know the ayat will be coming later in Surat al-Baqarah, but this is the thing that we're dealing with today. The solution is in the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that has told us in any locality where a plague breaks out, there should be complete quarantine. The people in that quarantine should not leave, and somebody who's not quarantined should not enter that place, irregardless whether they're sick or not. Islam has already given a solution. Whether you're sick from it or you're not sick from it, you show any symptoms or you don't show any symptoms, don't leave. Just stay. What has happened? People broke quarantine. It spread to various parts of the world. There was a cruise ship, some 3,700 people on the cruise ship, almost 4,000 people on that cruise ship. And many were very prominent people. On that cruise ship there were 400 Americans. And they were under quarantine for a long time. And finally, because of the actions of how those 400 were saved, it makes sense that those 400 were very, very prominent people. They were not average Americans. CDC and the World Health Organization, Centers for Disease Control and the World Health Organization quarantined the ship and made it very clear no one is allowed to leave. But we're in a very strange era where people can have great influence over governmental powers. So the United States sent buses and airplanes and took all of those 400 people off that ship. There were 14 that had symptoms of the virus, and they had the virus, and they were also put in the same airplane with all the other 400 people, and they were flown to America, and now they're here in the United States. And how fast the virus is now spreading in the United States. All for what? Because they were American. Well, we should have listened to the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When someone is in quarantine, just leave them in quarantine. But these things, they happen. Not just the United States of America. There are other countries that did the same thing. Ukraine, Japan, many others. They took their citizens back. But if they're quarantined with the virus, leave them there. Send your support and help them, but leave them there. So the deen of Islam has given us a solution. We don't want to accept those solutions. We want to apply our own logic or whatever system we have. So now we have these problems in the world. And this is all because of the dhulm and the oppression that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala warned us against. All of the actions of the Bani Israel. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ends their discussion with ayat number 122 and ayat number 123. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, Ya Bani Israel, O Bani Israel, اذكروا نعمتي اذكروا نعمتي التي أنعمت عليكم. Remember the favors that I have bestowed upon you, the numerous favors that I have sent on you. وأني فضلتكم على العالمين. And the fact that I have given you fadila, a specific position above all of the other mankind, the rest of mankind. واتقوا, and fear that day. واتقوا يوما لا تجزي نفس عن نفس شيئا. Fear that day when no one will be able to help someone else in any way. No soul will be able to benefit another soul in any way. وَلَا يُقْبَلُ مِنْهَا عَدْلٌ. On that day there will be no ransom accepted from anyone. You want to ransom yourself, take yourself out of the punishment. It's something you can do in this world. In this world you go to prison, just pay bail money. Pay the bail and you'll be out. And how many have done? Committed very major crimes, but they have the bail and they're out. On the day of judgment, there'll be no bail. You won't be able to pay to get out of it. وَلَا تَنْفَعُهَا شَفَاعَةٌ. No shafa'ah, no intercession will benefit anyone on that day. وَلَا هُمْ يُنْصَرُونَ. There'll be no one that'll be able to help anyone on that day. So the discussion of the Bani Israel comes to end with this very, very powerful ayah regarding the day of judgment. In this world, the dhulm that is going on, the a'mal that humanity has been involved in, the limits that we have gone to, it seems that when the adhab will come, how many it will affect. The final case was that of China, the kind of dhulm they were doing against the weak Muslim population. The stories of the torture that they were doing. But it didn't start with China. China was one of the final. They went very beyond extreme levels of torture. But many of the other countries, even before that, for the past 20 years, humanity has been in extreme bloodshed from the year 2000 up until now, 2020. Humanity has been going through bloodshed after bloodshed, war after war. There was a war in Afghanistan, then a war in Iraq. Then after that, there was an Arab Spring that stood up. And many of the Arab countries fell one after the other. The governments fell. The people were put through various kinds of hardships. In the end, Syria became an unbelievable situation where for years, even now, the past since 2013 until now, the kind of suffering the people of Syria are going through is unbelievable and you can't even explain it. The women, the children, the innocent, weak. It's just beyond words. And nobody knows who's fighting who. Almost every kind of country that has any inclination to war is sitting there. Every group, every mindset, every inclination to war. Whatever countries are, everything is there and everyone is fighting. And the locals, the mustada'afeen, the weak citizens, they're the ones taking the blunt of all of the dhulm, all of that oppression. And then now it was China. And even before that, few other countries, what happened in Burma, what has been going on in Kashmir, what has been going on in Palestine. These are things that have been going on for a long time. So the dhulm that we humanity have gone into in the past 20 years, it's unspeakable. And there are limits. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He wants to stop something, He doesn't need our preparations. We humans, how much preparation we make before we do something. How much planning. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends one small virus and the whole world is on high alert. And you can't stop it. It's appearing in places where people can't even imagine it will come. South Korea and in Iran and in many other places where this virus is appearing, people can't even imagine how fast it's spreading. Unbelievable speed it's spreading. All of this is because of the dhulm that we human beings have gone into. The very dhulm that the Quran warned us against. The very dhulm that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala warned us against. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive all of us. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect all of us. It is very important that for us as believers, the least we can do, whenever a situation like this happens, where this kind of adhab, clear adhab is spreading, this kind of adhab of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is spreading, there's only 2 or 3 things that we should become very regular in. One, istighfar. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the ayat of the Quran, وَمَا كَانَ اللَّهُ لِيُعَذِّبَهُمْ وَأَنْتَ فِيهِمْ وَمَا كَانَ اللَّهُ مُعَذِّبَهُمْ وَهُمْ يَسْتَغْفِرُونَ. That, O Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, we will not punish them so long as you are with them. And we will not punish them so long as they're mustaghfirun, so long as they're doing istighfar. Say astaghfirullah as much as you can. This will protect you from the adhab and the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Another thing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the ayat of the Quran, مَا يَفْعَلُ اللَّهُ بِعَذَابِكُمْ إِن شَكَرْتُمْ وَآمَنْتُمْ. Why would Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala send His adhab and punishment against you? If you are grateful and you believe. So adopt shukr and gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Make this habit of istighfar. Make the habit of saying alhamdulillah. So astaghfirullah and alhamdulillah. Make this part of your daily dhikr and wird. Make this part of your daily dhikr and wird. You will see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will protect us. At least, if nothing else, at least He will give us great ajr and reward. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us understanding and give all of us the tawfiq to practice His deen. وَمَا عَلَيْنَا إِلَّا الْبَلَاغُ. Whatever I'm speaking about, the latest news is that this pandemic is now spreading in the United States also. This is just giving you for those who may not have the chance to read the news, this pandemic is spreading very fast, very rapidly now also in this country. Very soon you'll be told to maybe even get masks or whatever it is. But don't panic. Do istighfar and do shukr. This is the main purpose of this discussion. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us understanding. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidil Mursaleen. Wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'een. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم اللهم نور قلوبنا بالقرآن وزين أخلاقنا بالقرآن ونجنا من النار بالقرآن وادخلنا في الجنة بالقرآن اللهم اجعل القرآن لنا في الدنيا قرينا وفي القبر مونسا وعلى الصراط نورا وفي الجنة رفيقا ومن النار سترا وحجابا. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.